Hi and welcome to Psych-Check, the podcast where we slow things down, think a little deeper, and explore the psychology behind the things we feel every day. I'm your host Sophia, and today we're talking about the psychology behind overthinking. Have you ever been in this situation? You text someone something completely normal like, okay, sounds good. You put a period at the end. It's unusual, but maybe we're just typing fast. And suddenly, the other person thinks that you're mad at them. They start spiraling like crazy. Why the period? Did I do something wrong? Is she upset? Did I say something weird earlier? Literally all just from one period. I mean, it happens to everyone. Sometimes it's a punctuation mark. Sometimes it's the expression on someone's face, a pause in a conversation, or the tone of someone's voice. Our brains can take the smallest thing and easily turn it into a whole situation. Like, even when there's nothing actually wrong, our brains can overanalyze and overthink over nothing. So, what's really going on here? Why do our brains jump to the worst case scenario over something so small? Let's break this down psychologically. Essentially, our brains are wired to crave certainty. When something feels uncertain or unclear or unpredictable, the mind tries to regain control by analyzing every single detail they can. But this obviously creates more anxiety instead of clarity. Overthinking also shows up alongside perfectionism. When you hold yourself to extremely high standards, your brain starts treating every decision like it has to be flawless, perfect. Everyday choices become super high stakes, even when consequences actually aren't that big. And when perfection becomes the goal, anything less than perfect seems like failure. That pressure often gets tied to your sense of self-worth. You start internalizing mistakes and ignoring the progress that you've made. On top of that, our brains have a built-in negative bias. We naturally pay more attention to awkward moments, mistakes, or potential threats. This habit was actually very helpful to our early ancestors. Imagine a caveman stepping out of his cave to look for food. They have to be careful to watch for any predators, a saber-toothed tiger, maybe a giant mammoth about to step on him. They've got to pay close attention to any possible signs of something watching. Today, we use the skill to replay our embarrassing scenes from middle school over and over and over and over and over again in your head, in my head, including my very questionable side part in 7th grade. But anyway, aside from that, when you pause to analyze every step before taking action, progress stalls. The desire to get everything just right and perfect leads to procrastination. Not because you're lazy or you would rather just doom scroll, which maybe you would, but besides that, your brain is overwhelmed by the pressure to get every tiny thing right, and this eventually leads to avoidance. This is not just a you thing. Your brain structure and wiring actually sets the stage for all of this to happen. There are two key regions of the brain involved here. The right inferior frontal gyrus and the right inferior temporal gyrus. So, with these fancy names straight out of a medical drama, these areas are essentially your brain centers for self-reflection and emotional processing. So these parts get especially active when you get stuck in your head, you overthink, replay conversations, or worry about what people think. And the more you overthink, the more you practice those habits, the stronger the connections between those regions become. Your brain essentially learns to get better at overthinking in a way. That's why overthinking is something that is so easy to spiral into. It's a cycle that's literally ingrained in your brain structure, so it's not easy to stop. But there's still some hope for us. There's research showing that when people learn to interrupt overthinking through treatment or the right strategies, the connections between those regions, the brain's self-focus area and its emotional processing area that we just talked about, they actually weaken. So, this means that the brain actually gets better at shifting out of the spiral. It becomes better at stopping overthinking and it unlearns the habit that you learned. But of course, it takes time and it's not easy to do. I still find myself replaying entire conversations out loud, facial expressions, laughter included, just to check if I sounded weird or made some sort of strange face. I probably look unhinged, acting out a full scene, alone, walking home from school, out in public, but I do it anyway out of habit. It's hard to control, and hopefully I'm not the only one who does this. I know some of you probably do it too. So, let's talk about what you can actually do when your mind starts spiraling like that. According to the Cleveland Clinic, one thing you can actually do is to schedule your overthinking. I know that sounds ridiculous, but hear me out. You can set aside a specific time in your day, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, where you're allowed to overthink with purpose. During that time, you write down whatever's stressing you out, and you brainstorm solutions for the things you can actually control. So, during the rest of the day, when your brain tries to drag you back into the spiral, you can remind yourself that it's for later. You can keep overthinking from taking over your whole day. Especially since our brains love to appear out of nowhere, like, hear me out, what if literally everything is your fault? Which is, let's be real, ridiculous. Another thing you can do is to challenge your anxious negative thoughts and feelings. Remember the text message situation from the beginning? Instead of letting your brain jump straight to, my friend is mad at me, or I ruined everything, pause and ask yourself, what about this made me feel that way? Is there another explanation? What evidence do I actually have? You actually need to challenge that little voice in your head telling you that you did something wrong. Another strategy is to not believe in those anxious thoughts. Most of the time, you'll realize that your brain filled in the blanks with the worst case scenario, not the most realistic one, and usually your friend isn't upset at all. They're just living their life sitting at home, probably eating food or just hanging out, completely unaware that you spent the last hour analyzing a period at the end of their sentence. And through all of this, the most important thing you can do is to practice self-compassion. You already know how to be compassionate with the people you care about. If your friend came panicking to you about a text or feeling embarrassed about something they said, you wouldn't tear them apart. You'd reassure them, you'd remind them that they're human, and then you tell them it's okay. But when you're the one struggling, your inner voice suddenly turns into the harshest critic alive. Self-compassion is about treating yourself with the same patience, kindness, and understanding that you already know how to give to everyone else. The research shows that when you do that, your body's internal threat system calms down. Your brain stops acting like you're in danger, and you actually think more clearly. It doesn't mean pretending that everything's perfect, it's about giving yourself some room to breathe in those moments. You're allowed to have feelings, you're allowed to get stuck in your head sometimes. You don't need to get rid of all of your thoughts, you just need to stop assuming that every one of them is telling the truth to you. Because, let's be for real, some of our thoughts are just really not the brightest. At the end of the day, overthinking isn't something you fix by being harder on yourself. It's something you interrupt by being kinder, by giving yourself room to breathe and clear your mind. And if overthinking ever starts to feel too heavy for yourself to handle on your own, it's completely okay to reach out to someone you trust. You don't have to carry everything by yourself. Know that there are people that care about you, and that there are people that are there for you. So, that's all for today. That's all for overthinking. I hope this was helpful. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. Feel free to share your thoughts on this episode or what you'd like for me to talk about next. Thanks for listening, and if you know someone who could use this or enjoy this podcast, please share it with them. You can find more information and the sources I use in the description below. Please take care of yourself out there. Like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.